The transfer portal is open and underway, but don't worry about that. It is and always will be recruiting season.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Friday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work at Giants Country and NFL 33. And without further ado, I bring to you Brian Smith, Locked On's Recruiting Insider. Joining me now for Locked On Gators is Brian Smith, Locked On's Recruiting Insider. And before we talk 2025, I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. And Brian, we're going to talk about some 2025 kids today. We're going to start with Corey Sims, wide receiver out of St. Louis. What are your thoughts on Corey Sims' film and your experience seeing him in person?
This is a big-bodied wide receiver that can play the boundary position. He's quite opposite of some of the kids that Napier and his staff signed this past year. He's 200 pounds or so. He's a grown man in terms of his physique, and he plays that way. He uses it to shield players off. He did it this past weekend at Nashville Under Armour. He got MVP by the Under Armour folks. Really good kid to be around, too, because he's just competitive. He's very open and honest about his recruitment, who he is. This is the kind of guy that's a little more mature all around than a lot of high school players. And he can run. I mean, he's not a burner, but at 200 pounds, not many guys are going to win 50-50s against him. So he'd be a nice compliment for the University of Florida Gators because they don't get a lot of guys with this kind of physique and power like Sims.
Yeah, I think it was notable. This is the first time since Jeremiah Smith that we're talking about a completely different mold of receiver that is actually targeting than usual, and they always go for the 6'1" and below. Not that that's necessarily what they're looking for, but they tend to be 6'1" and below and just shifty guys. And so I feel like that's such a great compliment if you can bring in a guy that's 6'3", 200 and can win those 50-50 balls.
Yeah, you got to have a little bit of that, especially red zone, third down, short yardage. If you're going to go against teams that do a lot of press coverage, he's going to help. And then he's also big enough, like he's strong, man. In the screen game, you throw past to one of those shifty guys. You need somebody to block too. Smaller receivers get eaten up in the screen game. So they need a little more balance. And I'm surprised they didn't take somebody like Corey in the last class, to be honest with you. I know everybody wanted Jeremiah, but there wasn't a backup plan to that, to my knowledge. So we'll see how that goes. But they need at least one guy in this mold in the class of 25, or they're just failing themselves. They need balance.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that Corey Sims doesn't have an offer from Florida yet, which I think is the first time we've ever talked about a kid that doesn't even have an offer from Florida yet.
He's got a gazillion others, though. It's weird.
Yeah, he's got a ton of other offers. He was at the Florida Gators spring game last week. And he's been pretty open that he's looking to get an offer from Florida. I have to feel like the moment he gets that offer, we should start talking about the possibility of him committing. I've never seen a kid really be like, yeah, like I'm looking for an offer from this school while holding other Power 5 offers.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that, but he's just got a fascination. And I talked to him a little bit about Florida. He just said he really likes the campus in the area. So maybe he had an experience with it. He's played with California Power 7-on-7. That's another place that I've seen him. So he's probably been to UF before just with the team. California Power travels all over the place. But I don't know. Florida is like one of the few schools that he's visited that didn't throw out an offer. I'm not really sure what they're waiting on because like I'm looking at his offer list now. It's just insane. So it's everybody but Florida, basically. LSU's offered, Georgia's offered, etc. I guess Florida just thinks they're wide receiver U or something, but he's a heck of a player, man.
Yeah, I know that he was at the spring game and he saw them play. So their offense is like, yeah, they throw a lot. I'm liking it. Billy Napier told me that he likes the verified height, weight, all that stuff, and that he's going to reevaluate my film and then decide if they're going to give me an offer.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Yeah, that's the approach, which I have to say, not that I'm saying it's a great approach, but I do think that it's at least fun to be like, all right, they're not just offering kids because other schools offered them. Like at least they're doing their due diligence. Where Florida, I mean, they've kind of picked up the tendency to be evaluation U, and it's like, oh, Florida wants them. That means their film's got to be good. Let's go take a swing at them. And so that's see, they're still doing their due diligence with it there. But we know that this is also going to be a recurring theme with every receiver that Florida is going to look at for the 2025 cycle. Corey Sims said, it feels good knowing that DJ Lagway played well in the spring game.
Oh, yeah.
Receiver recruits like Corey Sims are just openly saying, like his quote.
They should.
Was, I love that DJ Lagway will already be there, and I'm confident in him. Like, I feel like the Florida Gators have the greatest recruiting piece for a wide receiver right now.
It's kind of hard to argue that, to be honest with you. I mean, if you look at the group that they got this past year, a lot of fast guys the last couple of years, and DJ being there, he looked, I mean, I watched some of Florida spring game. I watched the whole thing, but I thought DJ looked pretty good. He had a nice touchdown on a post. You know, he's got that arm and he can move pretty well. He's got to speed up his clock in the pocket like most kids do, but compared to most freshmen, like it's obvious that he's advanced. By the time he's a sophomore, he'll be one of the better players in the SEC. That's my opinion. I've been around him quite a bit at the Under Armour event. This is the kind of guy that fits. So I think he'll help just through osmosis. When kids meet him on campus, whether it's a receiver, offensive lineman, it could be a linebacker. That's somebody you just want to be around. DJ's a good kid.
I've been told I'm a competitive person. Not that I need to be told that. I understand who I am, and I love it. Right? My competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. You've heard of it by now. If you're an everydayer, you've heard of it by now. We've been talking about it a lot lately. It's been downloaded over 150 million times as well. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you money. And you can do two things. You can be a good friend and work with your friends and build up some huge rewards, win tournaments, whatever that may be. Or you can be a better friend and you can charge your friends rent on iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. You can heist your friends' vaults for riches. That's what I like to do. Love that. And leaderboards show you who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. Spoiler alert, it's going to be me. Get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. With passion, drive, and patience, that's the formula for winning championships. And it's also, conveniently, the formula for your ride or die. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge dubs. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Yeah, we're going to talk about receiver / tight end now, I guess. We're sticking with pass catcher here, but what are your thoughts on Dakota Terrell, 6'9" wide receiver that is going to be playing tight end at the next level?
I thought he was 6'6", but whatever. He's humongous.
Who knows where kids are listed anymore?
It's wild. He's from a random school in Oklahoma, and I flip on his film, and it says tight end, and I'm like, this kid's not a tight end. He's a wide receiver. He doesn't block. He goes and catches passes. So he could grow into a flex tight end, but right now his mentality is go catch the ball. So he could run though, man. Like they throw screens to him. Usually really long-legged kids suck at screens because they can't stop and start well enough. He's pretty good at it. And he's also a guy that's pretty frail up top. He's got a lot of room to grow. He could be 240, no problem. So I think he will grow into it. But at first, maybe this is a guy that ends up being their boundary receiver. There's a lot of ways to look at it. His upside is high, and he's a kid that could probably play defensive end. He played some of that too. Just athletically, there's a lot to like. And his offer list matches it, Oklahoma, Michigan, etc. He's a kid, if he played in Atlanta or Orlando or something, he'd be ranked higher, but he's in middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. So he's a 3-star kid. This is the kind of player that Napier has made a living on when he was at Louisiana and to some degree with the Gators. Again, you mentioned earlier that he likes to do his own evaluations. We do not agree on the Sims evaluation, and I'll leave it at that. But Dakota is a kid, he could play at Georgia. He'd play anywhere. So I think this is a good target by Florida. It's just so random that the Gators are recruiting a kid in the middle of Oklahoma. But, hey, here we are. Welcome to 2025 recruiting.
Yeah, I feel like he's someone that, like, do you get to a point where you're talking about a player as he might be too big? He's like, I mean, again, listed as 6'9" on 3, 6'9", 210 on 3. Like, that dude is just a tree. He's just a tree. That's all it is. But 6'9" already means that you've got the potential to grow to still be 6'10", 6'11". And at what point, like, you're already an outlier at 6'9"? Do we have to talk about you just might be too big to play any pass catching role at the next level?
There's been a couple of guys like that, but it's pretty rare. I don't know. 247 has him at 6'6". For his sake, I hope they're accurate. 6'9" gives me some pause. And yeah, it's listed on 3 at 6'9". I'm guessing that's a typo, but I don't remember the last one that was successful. Purdue had a guy like that 20-some years ago that was 6'8", 6'9". They just threw a bunch of jump balls to him in the red zone. It was a nightmare for teams. So I guess you could look at it that way, but he could run, though. He doesn't just have to be a jump ball guy. He could make guys miss. He could do different things. And if he wanted, he could play defense too. So anytime you get kids that are that long, that athletic, there's probably a place for them. And you just got to figure it out. Once the kid gets on campus, you break it down and you let your strength and conditioning program take over, and the position will take care of itself from there. Get the player first.
Yeah, on both On 3 and 24/7, he's got like 7 offers, but 6 of them are Power 4. And I feel like that's such an anomaly to see a low rank.
That is really odd.
Have just 7 offers, 6 of them being Power 4, and the only other one being UNLV, which has one of the most fun offenses in college football. So I feel like with it was like Michigan, Oklahoma State, Florida, all in there. Like, that's such a weird outlet. This just feels like a weird recruitment. I just want to throw that one out there. It just feels like a weird situation.
I don't know what to tell you there. Maybe it's an outpost, and some of those other schools just haven't been by there because they don't want to spend the money to recruit Oklahoma. That's about all I can tell you. I've never heard of Pensacola, Oklahoma, and I probably won't again. That's my strong guess. So, I've been following recruiting for over 30 years. That name does not ring a bell, but that's all right. If you can play, you can play. They'll find a spot for you.
Yeah, and then before we wrap up on Dakota Terrell, I just wanted to talk about Florida's approach right now, because it does feel like they've taken a more spread approach to recruiting lately. They've been looking for the quarterbacks that are relatively dual threat, have big arms. Running backs, all of them now are proven pass catchers. That wasn't a thing early in Billy Napier's tenure at Florida or Louisiana. Their receivers are still the speedy, shorter types. Tight end now, even they're going for tall, wide receiver types. Where when you were describing Dakota Terrell's film, I feel like you could have just been describing Amir Jackson's too. You're like, oh yeah, he caught screens. It's like Amir Jackson was catching screens last year in high school, and then again, I will always bring up the Amir Jackson running end arounds in high school. Like, he was not playing tight end. He was playing wide receiver. And I feel like that you're seeing that with Dakota Terrell too. So I just think it's wild to see Florida with Billy Napier, a coach who's known for like 12 personnel, condensed sets. We're going to run the damn football. And then now it seems that he's taking like the Steve Spurrier fun and gun approach to building his offense. True.
I guess he's looking for a little more balance, and I'm guessing that DJ gives him some confidence in doing this. I mean, he can pull it and run and do different things with the RPO, but there are times where once he gets really comfortable, DJ could be in 3 wide, 4 wide, or 5 wide, but pretty much every play. Florida will run some 2 receiver sets, but with DJ, they really don't have to. I'm not saying they won't run the ball out. You can run it out of anything, but you can also find ways to just be a passing team when you want because you got an NFL quarterback in your backfield. Give him all the tools that he needs to excel. Having a big receiver, having a boundary, like that big boundary guy, and having a flex tight end to complement the running backs and the shifty receivers makes sense. Again, I'm just surprised they didn't do it earlier in the last class. Besides, everybody recruited Jeremiah. That's not really rough. But there's still just a lot of different players that you have to do something with to kind of make that balance. Maybe he's the guy instead of Sims. I don't know, but they need somebody that has some size to him that can block. Amir was one of those. I don't know exactly how they're going to use him. I kind of view him more as a receiver too, but they're listing him as tight end. Is he? Not yet. I don't think he is, because to be a tight end to me, you've got to be able to at least be serviceable as an inline blocker. Amir is not doing that. Dakota is definitely not doing that right now. So we'll see, but they're expanding slowly. So maybe Florida will throw the ball beyond 5 yards this year. That's yeah, their offense was hard to watch last year sometimes, even though they were accurate. They just didn't push the ball down the field that much. I think they're going to change that a little bit.
Yeah, I know you mentioned Amir Jackson's not going to be playing in line, blocking right now. Just every listener now hates you because that's what happens when I said that he's not going to be.
He's 215.
I know that.
No chance in hell. He's going to play inline tight end right now.
I know that, but every time they're like, "Oh, what's the tight end depth chart?" and I don't even list him on it. They're like, why not? He's a mid-year enrollee that played receiver last year and is now trying
even
to
if he gained 20 pounds and he got up to 235, the experience of blocking in pure live ball situations is different. That is a long time skill, and he's never really been forced into that. He didn't need him to at his high school. It's going to be like next year he'll probably be that, but right now he's just a big receiver. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, it's not a knock. It's just he's not a tight end right now at the SEC level. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, which is why if you're someone like me and you like a good pitching matchup, which I will die on the hill that I'd rather go see a good pitching matchup than just a slugfest, which is a game that needs to come back, by the way. But I want to go see the Mets play the Phillies in May 14th through 16th. I'm going to wait till probably the day of, make sure the weather is nice, make sure there's a pitching matchup that I want to watch, make sure Pete Alonso and Harrison Bader are both playing so that I can see some Florida Gators there. Just saying. And I'm going to go watch the Mets with Game Time. Last minute deals too, so you could save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for not just sports, but concerts, comedy, theater, whatever tickles your fancy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We are going to wrap up talking about Caleb Singleton, who not a big name in this 2025 recruiting class, but it feels like we've maybe found the athletic project corner that the Florida Gators will target in this class. They've done it every year that they've been in Gainesville. That's a big, Billy Napier did it at Louisiana too. If you can find an in-state athlete that's just that, an athlete, doesn't care about anything else, he'll find it. And for Florida, they've got that with Caleb Singleton. And I know his film is limited, but I was curious if you were able to form any opinion on his play from the limited film that they have.
The length is the first thing you notice. His brother is Singleton that plays for Florida State, the running back. Family genes are good. He's from Fleming Island, which is just outside of Jacksonville. It's a program everybody recruits that goes to that area. He plays some running back too. Not the biggest cat in the world. He's 170 or so pounds, 6'1", pretty tough. A lot of his film is him tackling, which is a good sign. I think he could end up being a nickel. A lot of those guys, they got to have a physical mentality. He might be able to eventually grow into that. but the film is limited. There's hardly any coverage of him. It's him knocking somebody down. So I don't know what to take of him other than the ability to run and hit and being a long kid. I'm curious to see his senior film because I see where guys would be interested in him and why, but there's just not enough film for me to really grade what he can do as a DB in coverage.
Yeah, I'm curious about what teams are usually looking for here when they target these low-ranked athletes, because it feels like every year Florida's targeting a long athletic corner that is learning the position still. I mean, you look at the first year was Jakeem Jackson. Last year was Teddy Foster. It's something that they've done every single year. And even I feel like you can include Jameer Grimsley, but he's more refined than most high school kids were last year. But what are teams really looking for at this point when there's a million 3-star athletes out there that you can kind of try to place long-term?
I don't know what the thought process is other than we think we can coach him, and they don't necessarily think he's got bad habits. They can fix whatever he has. Just looking at upside, having confidence in your staff. But I mean, it's Florida. You can go get elite players at DB. So I'm not completely understanding it, but then again, maybe they have film I don't. I've seen like a minute and a half. So the measurables are there, but there are other guys in the state of Florida and Georgia where they recruit that have similar measurables that are ranked higher. And there's more, at least for me, more availability to see the film. So maybe he's been on campus. They've had him on campus or something. There's something else that I don't know. Maybe they saw him at practice, but like you said, Florida's done this for a while. I don't know. I think he's a good prospect, but I need to see more before I'd even rate him a 4-star. I do like the length, though.
Does that become like a selling point for Florida there, of just like, yeah, there's higher ranked kids in Alabama and in Georgia, but this one's right in our backyard. We know it won't be too tough to try to get him. Like I do think that he will wind up being a Florida Gator. So is it just become that of, yeah, we don't have to work that hard to secure a commitment here. We could just find that one easy instead of spending resources getting into a battle with another high-ranking SEC program.
Taking the low-hanging fruit is basically what you just defined. I don't want to label him that because I still haven't seen a ton of film, but in some ways, a lot of coaches do that. They hate dragging out recruiting. A lot of coaches don't, and I get it. In-state kid, they need to recruit Jacksonville better. That's a really important area for the Gators. He lives 15 minutes from Jacksonville or whatever, but I don't know. I just feel like Georgia, Florida, Alabama, there's certain schools, they should always have a 5-star corner at least visit. I mean, Florida's one of those. So I don't know how many corners they want to take this year. If you want to throw that out there, that's important. But if he's your third guy, I got no problem with it. If he's 1 or 2, I'm not sure. Because, again, I haven't seen a ton of film, but I found it interesting that you brought that up because, I mean, they usually take in-state kids that are more of the project type for whatever reason. So like Teddy Foster, et cetera. Maybe he's going to end up being a free safety or something too because he has so much athleticism. They just think they'll figure that out. I don't know. But again, he's physical and he's long. So there's some opportunity there. It's an interesting topic.
I think we found the traits: versatility, physical, athlete, long. And they're just like, all right, you're in the state of Florida. Come on over. Here's your offer. Welcome to the bottom of the class there. But Caleb Singleton's brother, Samuel, plays for Florida State. You mentioned that earlier, running back. Do you think that really plays much into recruiting, usually having a sibling, or is it kind of like I explicitly don't want to go play with my sibling?
Usually it's one or the other, but at the same time, there's also the factor of, is Florida State ardently recruiting this young man? I have no idea because it's like, this is a kid I don't know much about, but I would assume if Florida State offered, he'd at least go visit. But that's one of those deals, either you do or you don't. It would be weird since he's most likely a defensive player that he's possibly going to tackle his brother at some point in college. If he plays in Florida.
That's an incentive. I'm trying to throw that one out. That sounds like incentive.
Could be. I don't know if mom's going to like that very much. But you know what? It is what it is. Sometimes kids just want to create their own path. Little brothers tend to do that quite often. So I don't think it's a lock that he goes to Florida State if the Noles go after him. We'll see. But a lot of kids, man, they go their own direction.
Yeah. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. This is Brian Smith, Locked On's recruiting insider. Catch him every week on Locked On Gators and catch him all throughout the Locked On College channel of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We will be back not tomorrow, unless there's some big news, which I don't think there will be. But if there's some big news, we'll be back this weekend at some point. If not, we will be back Monday at the absolute latest. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country at NFL 33, and I'll see you all next time.